Netflix's Monster series, a gripping anthology focusing on the lives of notorious criminals, has garnered widespread attention with its portrayal of infamous figures like Jeffrey Dahmer. Monster Season 3, Monster, the original Monster is set to focus on serial killer Ed Gein, whose disturbing story influenced films like Psycho and the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Charlie Hunnam, of Sons of Anarchy fame, has been cast as Gein. While Hunnam has proven his ability to handle complex, dark characters, the story of Ed Gein, while intriguing, might be too troubling to bring to the small screen. For Monster Season 3, the question isn't whether Hunnam could work as Gein but whether this story needs to be retold. Over the past 10 years, there has been an influx of serial killer-based stories that have exposed myriad horrible, disturbing crimes. It's also worth noting that viewers' fascination with serial killers should not overshadow the deeply disturbing realities faced by their victims. Exploring Gein's life risks reducing the weight of his victims' lives to entertainment, which is not only unethical but could also cause controversy. Ed Gein was a notorious serial killer in the 1950s. He was known as the Butcher of Plainfield. Ed Gein in Psycho, The Lost Tapes of Ed Gein. Ed Gein was born in La Crosse, Wisconsin, on August 27, 1906. He endured a difficult childhood, as his father struggled with alcohol and his mother was abusive towards him, but Gein nonetheless idolized her. After his mother died in 1945, Gein rarely left the house, and formed multiple shrines for her. Gein confessed to being responsible for 2 deaths, Bernice Worden and Mary Hogan. He was also reportedly revealed to have been systematically robbing graves and collecting body parts that he fashioned into masks. Once he was caught, Gein pleaded not guilty to murdering Worden and Hogan, for reason of insanity. He claimed he killed the women because they reminded him of his dead mother. In 1957, it was determined that Gein was not fit to stand trial, and he was sent to a series of psychiatric facilities. In 1968, when he was determined to be able to participate in his own defense, Gein was put on trial for the death of Worden. He remained in a mental facility until he died in 1984, via Britannica. What Ed Gein's story means for Monster Season 3. It will delve into Gein and Alfred Hitchcock. Anthony Perkins as Norman Bates staring at the camera in Psycho, 1960. Ed Gein's crimes inspired many fictional serial killers, including the villainous Norman Bates from Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho. Played by the White Lotus Tom Hollander, Alfred Hitchcock will also be a character in Monster Season 3. While the show will likely explore their connection further, it's worth noting that they didn't know each other in real life, so there's no blueprint regarding how the director and serial killer will interact or if they will interact at all. However, the similarities between Ed Gein and Norman Bates are apparent. Bates, like Gein, had an unhealthy obsession with his mother as he killed women who reminded him of his mother and adopted her persona to commit horrific crimes like the murder of Marion Crane. Monster creator Ryan Murphy has a history of glamorizing horrific events and people, from the first 2 seasons of Monster to American Crime Story to American Horror Story. Critics claim that Monster sensationalized Dahmer's crimes in Season 1, which made light of his victims' suffering. Some of Dahmer's victims' family members were upset that Murphy hadn't contacted them before the series started filming to get their blessings and perspectives. They felt that they were forced to relive their trauma on a national stage, which drew a lot of controversy to the true crime series, via Forbes. Why Monster Season 3 won't be as impactful? There's nothing new to say about Ed Gein's crimes. Nicholas Alexander Chavez as Lyle Menendez and Cooper Koch as Eric Menendez sitting on a prison bus in Monsters on Netflix. 1. As the series title suggests, Ed Gein is arguably a monster, so his story won't mirror that of the Menendez brothers in Monsters Season 2. The sophomore installment notably broke new ground by shifting the public perspective on the case, with many questioning if the Menendez brothers committed their parents' murders in self-defense, as they claimed they had been sexually, emotionally, and physically abused by them. Monsters, the Lyle and Eric Menendez story inspired a movement wanting to free the brothers, and their case even received talk of clemency from California Governor Gavin Newsom. Currently, the brothers remain in prison because of changes in leadership at the Los Angeles District Attorney's Office, via THR, centered on Ed Gein. Monster Season 3 likely won't shed new light on any aspect of his brutal murders and other crimes. First off, Gein has been dead for over 40 years, so he's not still in prison or even still alive like the Menendez brothers. Plus, his victims were killed nearly 70 years ago, and while this doesn't make their deaths any less meaningful, it also proves that focusing on Gein's crimes likely won't spark any change to his long-existing cases or have a bigger societal impact like in Season 2. The only fresh aspect of Gein's story that will come from Monster Season 3 is how his crimes inspired Hitchcock's 1960 horror classic, Psycho. But while this is an interesting angle for sure, it has already been explored in the documentary space with Psycho, The Lost Tapes of Ed Gein. Charlie Hunnam will be fascinating as Ed Gein. He knows how to play complex characters. While Monster Season 3 shouldn't happen, there's no doubt that Charlie Hunnam will be fantastic as Ed Gein in Monster Season 3. Those who doubt his abilities need only look to his work in FX's Sons of Anarchy, in which Hunnam plays Jax Teller, who certainly lives up to his reputation as an iconic TV anti-hero. Jax spends most of the series trying to steer his criminal motorcycle club into more legitimate ventures, only to further descend into darkness in his efforts. Through his role as Jax, Hunnam makes it clear that he can play a nuanced character capable of committing terrible acts. Also, Hunnam has explored darker, psychologically complex roles, so he will likely have no issue tackling a serial killer because he understands characters with intricate motivations. It's also worth noting that Hunnam likely won't have an issue altering his appearance to play Gein, as he has changed his appearance for other parts. However, some viewers are nervous that Hunnam's good looks will make them attracted to a serial killer like Gein. Enough stories about serial killers. They shouldn't be sympathized with. Evan Peters as Jeffrey Dahmer in Monster. Maybe Hollywood needs to stop producing stories about serial killers altogether and shift its focus to more deserving subjects whose stories often don't make it into the spotlight. Viewers familiar with their American crime history already know that Gein is guilty and ultimately a twisted person. But true crime shows like Monster arguably humanize serial killers and make everyday viewers sympathize or even empathize with their heinous actions. Of course, this argument has been made multiple times in the past, yet Hollywood continues to churn out true crime content because it gets big ratings. Season 1 of Monster was a record breaker for